evening, everyone. Welcome to what I know will be a very special night. I'm Joyce Kaufman. I'm professor of political science. I'm also director of the Center for Engagement with Communities. Thank you. I'm sure that whoop was from one of my students, right? This event is part of our first year experience tied to the general theme of Poets Give Back. And it's all tied to the belief that every one of us can make a difference. Our speaker tonight, Linda Biehl, embodies that idea. Linda is an alumna of Whittier College, class of 1965, and she and her late husband, Peter, received honorary degrees from Whittier College in 2002 in recognition of the work that they've done. Linda is the co-founder and director of the Amy Biehl Foundation in the United States and the Amy Biehl Foundation Trust in South Africa. Her relationship to South Africa and the genesis of these foundations is grounded in the life and death of her daughter Amy, who was killed in an act of political violence by a group of South African youth who saw all whites as their oppressors. Her message of peace and reconciliation is central to her life and everything she does. Linda and the work that she has done in the foundation truly embody the idea that an individual can make a difference. We are honored to have her as an alum. We are honored that she's our first center scholar, and we're honored to have her tonight. Linda.
Thank you, Joyce. I've met some of you already, haven't I? I've been in a few of your classes, freshmen, undergraduate school, or the undergraduate as well, class or two. I've been at the Friends Church. I've been at the library, and today I was at Milliken High School in Long Beach for their Peace Academy. So it has been a really exciting week for someone my age to keep in touch with the youth of today. I'm actually going to start the presentation with a video. I think it's around 23 minutes long. It's very recently done, and it was done for our South African Foundation by South Africans, so you might hear a little different accent, a little different words at times. But it's about, there's some of the early footage from our U.S. television when Amy was killed. Might give you a little bit of background. And then what I'm really proud of is I think you'll get a chance to actually see what we are doing in the South African Foundation and the people who are now involved running it and the youth in South Africa. Because to me, the foundation and the programs that are run in South Africa are really the result and the product of reconciliation. And South Africa is still, even though it has a long way to go and a lot of issues, it is a country that can show what true reconciliation can come out of a disastrous system of apartheid. So let's watch the video. I'll come back and chat a bit, but I'm hoping that some of you will really have some great questions that we can talk about. Thanks. Amy Biehl was the second of my 4 children, and she was, from the time very little kid, a very goal-oriented, smart, sort of a rascally kid. She wanted to do things and be successful at doing them. She ran for president of her first grade class. She really knew herself and what she wanted from herself from a very early age. She got very interested in South Africa and its problems, its apartheid issues, And Amy started at Stanford and majored in African studies, and she got very interested in women's rights in these emerging democracies. So she applied for a Fulbright grant, which is a U.S. State Department grant, and received it, and it was basically on women's role in the transformation here in South Africa. When Amy was here as a Fulbright scholar, she had opportunities to meet, people that were later in the government, part of the government, and yet she loved the grassroots people. She was intellectually and academically driven, a great believer in the best education possible, but she also had a very love of life side to her.
She was killed by the very people whose cause she was fighting for.
I think that's exactly right. And so I think sort of rushing through her pain, there must have been this element of disbelief.
Her parents, Linda and Peter Biehl, decided they had to try and understand their daughter's commitment to the people she had given her life for. With South Africa on the brink of a race war, Amy's death was a turning point. Horrified at the murder of a friend, blacks joined with whites in peace rallies across the country. The Biehls decided they had to go to South Africa. Looking for answers, Linda and Peter went into the squatter camps of Gugulethu, the black township where Amy's killers had grown up. This is where you came to begin to understand.
Trying to know whether to hate them or I just felt this void. I really didn't know what I felt about them. And so when I was able to come out into their environment, then I knew, okay, there was some logic to it. I can understand how if you were a youth living in these conditions, you could be stirred up and you could become violent. I think I can understand that.
Not only do they understand, they spend much of their time right here in Gugulethu, passing the very spot where their daughter was killed.
You ride by that spot all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
I think she'd like it. I think she'd be glad to know that we have the inner capacity to do that, the inner strength to do that.
If we had never come back here, if we hadn't done something to carry on for her, I think she would be very, very disappointed in us.
After the 4 young men who killed Amy were convicted and sentenced to 18 years in prison, they applied for amnesty to Archbishop Tutu's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The Biehls, who attended the hearing, could have objected, but they didn't.
If you accept and support the process, as Amy did and as we do, then you must accept the results. You can't say I support the process, but oh my God, don't think about giving these guys amnesty for our daughter's case. Come on, you can't do that.
The killers were pardoned and released from prison after serving only 4 years.
We absolutely accept the outcome, no questions asked.
I'm compelled to ask because I don't understand. I know I would be angry. Do you have to fight off anger? Or it just isn't there?
No.
No, it's a void. And then I think it's important then to fill that void with understanding.
Archbishop Tutu says the Biehls have what South Africans call Ubuntu.
I say, Ubuntu. That person has the essence of humanity. Ubuntu speaks of generosity, of warmth, of hospitality, of compassion, of caring.
The Biehls know that with their resources, they can only hope to chip away at the problems facing South Africa. But that's okay, they say. They have to try. They're just following in the footsteps of their daughter.
I feel connected with Amy every time the wheels touch down at the airport here. And I disconnect, in a sense, every time we lift off. And so when I'm walking around here right now, and the breeze is blowing, yeah, I definitely feel it here.
When we first met the Biehls, we also met 3 of Amy's 4 killers. They say, and the Biehls agree, that the murder was a politically driven act. Several months after that interview, Easy Nofamela and Tobacco Penne tried to make contact with the Biehls. They wanted to meet, something Linda and Peter had once said they wouldn't do. But Peter got a call from an intermediary saying the 2 young men were trying to transform their lives by starting a youth club.
She said they would very much like to meet you and Linda and to tell you what they're doing with their youth organization. She said, would you be willing to meet with them? And I said, absolutely. When can we do it?
You said it that quickly?
Yeah. The fact that they wanted to talk to us and sort of made that happen through an intermediary, that was very pleasing. And so it didn't take any time at all to agree to meet with them.
If you spent some time with them, I think you'd really be surprised.
The surprise, of course, is the Biehls, who not only continue to meet and talk with the 2 young men, but have decided to help and support them.
They're making block and they're welding. They're doing a terrific job, and they're there every day like clockwork, on time, and it's marvelous.
With full support from the Biehls, 2 of Amy's killers are now learning a trade in the very programs the Biehls set up.
I've always said that one of the great regrets I had in this whole thing is that Linda and I were halfway across the world. We couldn't hold Amy in her last moments and comfort her. And yet these guys saw her then. And that thought does occur to me.
Yet Peter and Linda have forged an unlikely, if not amazing, bond with the 2 men.
I actually do have sort of a maternal instinct, to be honest with you. They're talking about me, their mother, and they call Peter their father. But they're giving me chills because, I mean, from anyone I can't forget that these boys murdered her. Did they really murder her? No. No. It was apartheid.
I think Amy would be very proud of what she achieved in her short life. Also, at the same time, she would be wanting to achieve a lot more. And so her best chance and her dreams can really be fulfilled through these 2 guys, in large part. If they make it, they are clear evidence to the new South Africa that 2 people can pull themselves up from the very worst of possible situations and make something constructive and contributory of themselves. I think that's her dream, and I think that she's living that dream today through these 2 guys.
Up to 80,000 people a year migrate to the Western Cape from other provinces and the rest of Africa, creating enormous pressure on the province's already thin resources and infrastructure. Every day, there are thousands of unsupervised children in the impoverished townships of Cape Town, which leads to rampant crime, drug abuse, violence, and unsafe sex. Those living in the townships still receive poor or limited education, have little opportunity to be creative, and are largely left to their own devices during the afternoons, Saturdays, and school holidays. It is against this background that in 1997, Peter and Linda Biehl established the Amy Biehl Foundation in South Africa, initiating social, cultural, and economic empowerment programs to disadvantaged Cape Town communities. After the untimely death of Peter Biehl in 2002, Linda Biehl continued with the foundation with the help of the Cape Town community. Today, as a South African organization, the Amy Biehl Foundation has grown and flourished, and Linda still visits South Africa every year. The Amy Biehl Foundation is a non-profit organization with youth education, development, and empowerment programs aimed at underprivileged youths aged 5 to 18 living in townships in and around Cape Town. We serve over 1,800 children per week with interactive, educational and cultural programs which involve them in positive and productive activities. The programs place the youth in a safe environment away from the violence and drugs that plague the township areas, whilst providing positive role models and alternatives to the negative influences. They are taught life skills and how to lead focused, healthy lifestyles, including poverty alleviation and the prevention of HIV/AIDS. Children who come through our programs are better equipped to handle the challenges of the townships and life in general. Our aim is to provide them with opportunities to become future leaders, entrepreneurs, and emotionally well-rounded citizens who are able to bring income to their families and communities.
The last 4 years or so, we've really built up an organization that works with others. We are always very conscious that if we can build more partnerships and more people can work with us, we'll be able to make more of an effective impact on the work that we do.
The Amy Biehl Foundation has been around for a good number of years, and we've earned our credibility, and we're always accountable. It's transparent, and I think they can go and visit our programs and see the difference that their funding is doing. There's tangible evidence.
The Amy Biehl Foundation has a core staff of 12 coordinators, 68 contract facilitators, and teachers. In addition to our staff, we have an average of up to 10 volunteers from all over the world at any one time.
A lot of the children have access to education, but not quality education. And I think that is very important, because what we try and do is to offer alternatives to children because of the environment that they live in. And because a lot of the children's parents cannot afford to send them to schools where they can get better education, they are kind of left in a situation where they struggle, they come home, they're not focused enough because they don't get from early childhood the intervention to actually guide them and properly rear them to become more sufficient and self-sustainable youth.
If I put myself in the shoes of a child and I watch them enjoying themselves with us, number one, I think it's attention. You can actually observe that this child actually just to be next to us. Sometimes you are able to identify a child who's got a very high energy, but this time around you see a child on this particular day with a low energy and you realize something is not right. So you just keep the child next to you and you walk around, you give them different responsibilities. Or you don't want to join another class for that day, but you sort of attend to them and ask them and engage them, and we use the peer education facilitators and even students to get to know what's happening within that child's life.
The Youth Reading Role Model Program reaches hundreds of students each week. This year-long program runs during the school day in 22 primary schools and consists of grade 7 students getting the opportunity to read aloud to grade 1 students. Grade 7 students improve their reading, comprehension and public speaking skills, while grade 1 students benefit from exposure to positive role models and educational support.
To bring the culture of reading to our schools, especially to the disadvantaged schools in the community, of which the teachers, the principal, everybody is supporting the program very well.
When considering that South Africa is in the midst of an AIDS and drug addiction epidemic, the country's youth needs to be educated and warned about it. During school hours, in life orientation lessons, children in the townships are educated about life skills, the dangers and causes of HIV/AIDS and substance abuse through peer education. To date, hundreds of students have been trained as peer educators, and they have gone on to teach, counsel, and advise countless other primary school students. They serve as positive role models who stress abstinence and the importance of living a substance-free lifestyle.
Our youth doesn't fear anything. They know about these challenges, but they're still doing them. If you sleep with a boy, or with a girl, there might be a pregnancy or an STI happening there, but they're still doing it.
But who eats a frog? Fish. And then who eats a fish? Us. I think somewhere we do eat what? A frog.
The Greening, Environment and Poverty Alleviation Program works to teach children the importance of health and nutrition, respect for the environment, growing vegetable gardens, poverty alleviation, and much more.
The water that we have made it dirty, and we're trying to try to make it more cleaner.
Environmental clubs for the youth are an important part of the program. Additionally, we aim to improve the external landscape of participating schools by planting trees, flowers, and vegetable gardens. The foundation currently runs 5 after-school centres at various schools in Nyanga, Crossroads and Gugulethu, each hosting up to 300 students per day. The program is run from Mondays to Thursdays and Saturdays, with a nutritious meal being offered to each child daily. Children are educated in groups of 20 to 30 through various educational and cultural programs. The Sports Development Program provides a safe and supportive environment for children to experience the physical and mental challenges associated with sport. Coached by enthusiastic foundation staff members and volunteers, the program provides an opportunity for local youth to develop their skills and to channel their energies into healthy and constructive activities. Northern Ireland, the Netherlands and Germany currently partner with the Amy Biehl Foundation to run soccer and hockey clinics. A partnership with the City of Cape Town provides resources and venues so that we can expand our sports programs.
Their commitment is to attend every training session that has been arranged for them, and then to have discipline in there, to listen to their coaches, to their instructors, to do what they are told to do.
But it's up to the facilitator and the coordinator. So you need to constantly to come up with plans, exciting things that you let them to commit themselves in the sport.
Groups of children are taught music theory and musical instruments at various times and at different schools and venues in the townships.
We do have partners like Bishops, the Cape Philharmonic Orchestra, Lambrecht. They then partner up with us in terms of taking some of our kids from the township to their schools or institutions and then offer training to those children. So it is also about ensuring that the children that are selected actually appreciates, number one, and that they also are deserving of these kind of opportunities.
At present, the programs involve more than 70 students from the townships who otherwise would not have had the opportunity to play a musical instrument.
This is the Milton Academy's 8th tour of South Africa, and we're really honored to be partners with the Amy Biehl Foundation.
The children perform at various events, such as the Amy Biehl Foundation fundraisers, weddings, concerts and conferences to grow their confidence and showcase their talent. Run at our after-school centres, groups of children are taught fine art, drama, dance, as well as breeding, where we strive to create a new order of artistic excellence by providing a climate that rewards artistic talent through exploration and development of the children's latent talent. The Amy Biehl Foundation has partnered with Cape Town Ballet and Zama Dance School, taking 10 children each week for ballet and dance lessons. During school holidays, we take as many children as possible to foundation-run camps, where they are kept off the streets and involved in healthy and positive activities in beautiful surroundings. The students are also taken on outings during each term. These are usually the only opportunities that these children have to see nature and experience other surroundings outside of the townships.
Well, the projects are an opportunity for these young people to find their own capabilities within. Because at this point, some of them, their self-esteem is very low, but as they become part of this project, when we take them out of the township during public holidays, it makes a huge difference in their lives. It changes who they are.
Because of the successes of our programs over the last decade and our mission to continue the reconciliation process between South Africa's privileged and less privileged citizens, various measures have been put in place to ensure future sustainable income, such as the Amy Biehl Cultural Township Tours, supported and promoted by Cape Town Tourism.
There's just so much that needs to be done, so many youth that we need to get into our programs, which is limited by funding. We can only do so much with whatever resources we've got.
We need to donate to the Amy Biehl Foundation because it helps us run our programs effectively. We can have more children in our programs. It's better run, it's more exciting, and giving them something creative to do every day.
The Amy Biehl Foundation has positioned itself as a well-run, sustainable organization that contributes to the change required to ensure healthy, vibrant communities with well-rounded youth. The continued success and further expansion of our youth education and development and empowerment programs depends upon the generous financial support of compassionate visionaries like you. With your help, we can address the challenges of the townships and continue to grow our work with the youth.
Wow, it just made me tired watching all that. That video was done, filmed last March. The funding was provided by one of our corporate partners, and it obviously is for fundraising in South Africa. But what I liked about it, that I've done other videos and whatnot, is basically you got to see the kids, didn't you? Was it great? See those kids and the talent and where they come from, but the possibilities. I guess the Center for Engagement and Communities here is really what this is about as well in South Africa. We all have opportunities to engage in our communities, whether they're right here around us or halfway around the world. The one message I would really like maybe to share with you and what I feel strongly about is when you are saying you're doing community service or you're volunteering and, wow, make it real. You know, it's easy to say, I need so many hours of this, or I should sign up for this. When I was at Long Beach today, it was their sort of sign up at clubs and their outreach programs. And, you know, people say, well, you should come and do this, you know, and then you get your hours and you get, that isn't what this is all about. And I know this isn't what the center is about. It's about real passion. It's about being human beings with other human beings. And the passion has to be a part of it, I think, to really make it true engagement. And I think the motivation, your motivation, should be questioned. As you can see early on in that with the Leslie Stahl interview, we were, I think, kind of coerced into say some things that really weren't a part of our motivation. And if any of you are journalist majors, please don't edit and make it something that it's not, because almost every documentary or interviews we've done, it's like, well, we kind of said that. Leslie said we had to do that. In a way we did. We had to go to South Africa, and we were encouraged by South Africans to come. But actually, it was the very people in the community, the parents of those children, the teachers in the schools that we saw on our very first trip there 18 years ago this month, that said, come and help. So our motivation was yes, yes, yes. We definitely had Amy in our hearts, but Amy didn't run program, by the way. She was a researcher. I don't know that she ever really had to deal with a lot of financial and, labor issues and payrolls and all those interests. It's actually quite complicated, particularly when you're working in another country and you are perceived as wealthy Americans, that you have all the resources and that you can choose to do whatever you want, and to make them understand that this is really their organization. That's where I'm at now in this whole thing, that this is yours. And as our staff has evolved, and the two young men who were given amnesty in Amy's case were Tobacco and Easy. To see them doing what they're doing is really still one of the most heartfelt things I experience daily. But the motivation that you have here as students, what you might be participating in your community engagement and the opportunities that your professors like Joyce Kaufman are giving you to engage in community enhances your own life. I know that when we went to South Africa, as much as we thought we were engaged in our communities and our kids' schools and whatnot, we really came back to this country looking at things a little bit differently. It opened our eyes to more than just what's right around us, but we also saw similarities. We saw that we are human beings and the spirit of Ubuntu, and we are all in this thing together. And once you say you're going to do something, do it. That commitment thing is really important. We found Amy's journals after she died, and her high school journals in particular were kind of interesting. And in one of them, she said, my friends and I are walking down the street and we see a homeless person. And my friends say, oh, that's terrible. I should do something about that. And in her journal, Amy said, don't say it if you don't mean to do something about it, something positive. So for real engagement, it takes energy, it takes passion, good motivation, and it takes commitment. And then it's real. And then we become human beings together. And that, I hope you can see the possibilities. I would like to say, you saw some of the tours. I've had a lot of feelings about whether we should do tours or not. Are people just going to go and gawk at these conditions? I remember being one that was taken out there and you felt that you were just staring at unbelievable things. But what we do, if you saw in some of the video, people get out of their buses and they get in those classrooms, or they go into the streets or the gardens and help, and they dance, and the kids, and the exchange. And you know what the kids say afterwards? Thank you for bringing the foreigners. Because they don't get out and see it. So they've had something magical. So we always make sure there is personal interaction. You probably also saw a number of our interns somewhere in there that come, volunteers and interns that come from colleges, universities, and just people that aren't affiliated with things do come and volunteer. And as I said, Monday night at our official launch, I said, it's time we have some Whittier College students come to South Africa. And I would like, as a foundation my U.S. foundation is a 501c3. So I do raise money in here and can give appropriate tax deductions. Obviously, much of that money over the years has had to go to South Africa. But the South Africans are beginning to raise money in their own country. We have great partnerships in Europe, and the whole foundation, I think, will be totally sustainable on its own. So that money I raise here now we can work in partnership and really help provide more opportunities for students like you that might like to come. As you can see, we have a wide variety of projects, and your talents you students have so many talents. Kids are getting computers. South African kids want to learn computers. Some of the schools have computer labs, but their teachers don't know anything about computer. Often the servers are down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when students come and teach kids computer, and we bring our own laptops that were donated out into programs, those kids are so thrilled They just can't believe they're having these kinds of opportunities. And the engagement between intern and the kids in the townships, it grows and grows and grows. And I would say most of our interns and volunteers over the years come back to South Africa. They really have found something in that country, and with the children and the land itself, something that has drawn them to come back. So let's think about that. I'm trying to spend more time in the U.S. right now because, as you can see, I have a very wonderful group of people that have been growing as coordinators, facilitators, and staff. We're a very diverse organization. And I think even since that film was done, I think we've employed more people. Employment is important, because the unemployment rate in those communities that you saw in the video, it can be 70 or 80%. And most of those people who do have jobs are women who are domestic workers or men who are gardeners or menial labor. And we don't want to see those kids, those talented kids, just have to resort to that just to get by. And they're not going to, because they're talented young people. And I am so inspired by them and so excited that two young men, Easy and Tobacco, that you saw there, are so involved from the time they got out of prison to where they are now in really changing lives of those kids in their community so that those kids don't have to resort to the kind of violence that was a big part of their life growing up. So I don't know how this is going to work. I would love to have some engagement with you all, if we can keep using that word, and some questions. Feel free to ask, what might be on your mind, if possible. Okay. Microphones in the back, because I'm probably not going to be able to hear you up here unless there's microphones. So, do we have some comments, some questions? Let's have a little dialogue here tonight, possibly.
I know you mentioned that your foundation has limited funding, but I was just wondering what happened to all of those students after they finished the education that your foundation is giving them.
It's very interesting, and it's actually one of the questions I've asked myself for a number of years. What is the next step? What is the next step? Because they do become very dependent and they do have opportunities. For instance, you saw some kids playing the violin. Okay, these kids, some of them go to a very exclusive private school in Cape Town. The bishops, I think they mentioned it. They are given violins to use, to take home, to practice on. They go once a week for lessons. They love the violin. It's an inspiring thing for their whole family, for their families to see them play the violin. And this is why they are in elementary school. Now, the one thing about the schools there is they are primarily, there's not junior high or middle schools. So kids, like you saw the Youth Reading Role Model Program, are the older kids in the school, and they can be 12, 13, 14, 15, even older, because many kids come from the rural areas and they haven't had formal education. So they're sort of an overage learner sometimes, and they're trying to change that, because when you get older kids with a lot of younger kids in the same environment, it's not probably as healthy as it should be. So the kids in elementary school want to continue the violin when they get in high school. But, conditions, we transport these kids everywhere. One of the biggest needs we really have is for a help in transportation, and people don't want to give to that. Oftentimes, well, you can't spend money on petrol, as they say in South Africa, or gas, or you can't spend it on vehicles. When we had U.S. government money, you can't buy an automobile unless it's a new American car. I mean, some of the things you have to deal with in funding don't make sense, because if we don't have vehicles to get them and move them around and transport, most of our staff don't have driver's license. So all of these things make it difficult for the next step. However, by the use of volunteers, by our Saturday classes and some other environments, we have been able then very economically to continue, and if the kids really love it and they get through high school, then I think there are some opportunities, because there are programs in South Africa with their Philharmonic for youth development. Again, transportation. But I will say we are getting more and more partners to help us with those kinds of things. And Reed's Motor Company has been giving us now vehicles in South Africa. They put the logo on, so if my drivers are not driving very well, they get in trouble. The Amy Biehl Foundation car is here. Oh, you know, is there a dent in it? But it's been a growing thing to deal with. So yes, we realize that there are those issues. The HIV/AIDS peer educators are high school students, and there just isn't a lot of things open for them to do after high school, and that is a crucial time. And so some of those facilitators that you saw with the Amy Biehl t-shirts on, the environmental guy, and Delisa was another girl in the HIV/AIDS, we hire them. We hire them while we hopefully can help find them some kind of tertiary schooling. It may not be university or the more expensive technicons, but there are some schools that will, help with short-term management programs and all that kind of stuff. So one of our goals now is to really be a resource center. We have worked in the prisons as well. People get out of prisons. What do you do when you get out? They come for us for jobs. But my manager that you saw, Kevin Chaplin there, was from the business world. He actually was the retail manager for one of the banks in South Africa, and I brought him on board as a trustee. And about the time my husband died, he was invaluable, and he was this banker, and he got good rates for fees at the bank and all this, but he started to really love the foundation, and things were changing. And he is so capable of helping young people find jobs, because he's from South Africa. He's been in the business world. So you have to find ways to make sure and support. And some of the kids I brought to the U.S. over the years, which is another thing. What do you do when they get back? Are they going to feel unhappy with their culture and their neighborhood? No, you need to kind of be able to work within their culture, what they love about their culture, and also, the things that will give them a better life. It's a very challenging and daunting thing. It's a good question, and sometimes we have people like you come over and actually help us with those resource areas, and actually maybe do a paper on it and help study. We use people as best we can. So you've just made a commitment, I think. No. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Hello. In what ways would you like to see the Amy Biehl Foundation expand over the next several years?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that, I will say that this August was the 18th anniversary of Amy's death. I was 50 when Amy died, so if you do the math, in 2 years' time, it'll be the 20th anniversary, and I will approach some awful age that I wasn't expecting to approach. But anyway, we all like to retain our youth as much as possible. But it's really that organization in South Africa needs to be sustaining itself as a true South African organization. It's close, I've also, wanted to make a presentation to let people in South Africa know, because a lot of people think, oh, I've come over and just done this and done that, and everything is my idea or my late husband, and it's not, it's theirs. And so for that organization to say, we don't even have to be named the Amy Biehl Foundation. We can have a great new interesting Xhosa name that means something like Ubuntu or togetherness or whatever, It can be based on Amy's background. They don't want me to do that because, in a way, I think the name has opened doors. But I think they can open their own doors. And I think that's what I really want to see. And we do need to expand. During one time, we had gone out farther into the Western Cape. We had U.S. government money, and they were saying, go expand. And we got we got 4 hours away in different communities. I also don't know if you've noticed, and you probably wouldn't unless you know South Africa a little bit, but some of those schools most of them were black township schools. Then you saw some hip-hop guys kind of doing some stuff, spinning around, and you saw some clothesline hanging up. Those areas are what they call colored areas, and they're different cultures. The colored population actually speaks Afrikaans, and the blacks speak their Xhosa or Zulu or whatever. So what we'd like to see is those communities getting together. And we have expanded into the colored areas, but my COSA staff, the people are not used to those communities. They're right next to each other. So I think it's also expanding numbers, obviously. As time goes on, the different needs in skill development and really getting them into helping them really get into better schools and better education, but also within their own communities realize that their neighbors, even though of different culture, that we're mixing them. We're doing that in the camps. That's a great place to mix, because that's what South Africa is trying very hard to do, because separation, people are still living in their separate areas. So I think our facilitating that. I say our, and it's really them, you know, it really is now. Thank you.
Thank you. And I really would love to see a sort of study abroad program between Whittier and the Amy Biehl Foundation. I think that'd be very cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for sharing. It was very powerful to hear your story, and especially that you came from Whittier and you're doing such big things. I was wondering if the Amy Biehl Foundation was reaching out to any other countries for volunteers or making any connections outside of America to South Africa.
Yeah, I got an email this morning because it's not during our, you know, normally the U.S. Volunteers and students come June, July, August, maybe May, June, July, and August, if they're in school at that particular time, which is the South African winter, because they're in the summer, or they're in the southern hemisphere, and the winter's fine. It's California winter, so, you know, it can be a little cold and damp because a lot of buildings don't have central heating, et cetera, but it's a great time to be there as well. But right now, this morning, I hear we've got 2 young women from England who are putting a little break in their career, and then there are 2 people from the Netherlands. The Irish, the Netherlands, England, a lot of European. In fact, my director is in Poland right now. We have been asked to join some sort of association of after-school programs, and we're the only African organization that they've asked to join, and they intend to bring some kids from Poland to, I think, Cape Town in June, and we're going to then bring some kids back. We've done that with the Irish. When they come down, they brought some kids at times and brought our kids back. So lots, and those things have just happened. I don't even know how they happen. But yes, we've had numerous Europeans now, and I think we had a couple of Mexican students, and I don't know if we've had any Asian. We've had Asian students from America, but I don't know whether we've actually had any come from Asia. But it can be at times quite an interesting little global community with our interns. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I just want to know, in what ways do you notice these kids give back to the community as they're going through the program or after the program?
Well, as I said, we've actually hired some of them, but some of them do stay on as volunteers. They really do. They come back. They do come back, even if they go on to high school and they get busy, they get out and they come back and see. And they become the facilitators, actually. South African society and the cultures depend a lot on their, who they are. So most of those kids that you saw in the picture were Xhosa speaking. Mandela is Xhosa. And those kids do have what Desmond Tutu spoke about, Ubuntu. There is a great spirit of community. If for instance, there's a death on a street, and the whole street will get together, They will support the family. They will provide food, even though they don't have much. They do pull together. It's not to say that there aren't jealousies and other things, but there is. It's almost a tribal kind of thing. You know, Easy, one of the guys that you saw who did get amnesty in Amy's case, explains our relationship and reconciliation a little bit like when they were boys, and I'm talking about ancestral boys, and not just them, but in their culture, boys would go outside and they would have stick fights, and it was part of growing up, and they'd almost beat each other to death. And then the elders would come out and say, okay, it's time now to heal your wounds. Go to the river and wash each other's wounds. And I think that even though there can be a lot of conflict in these communities based on the poverty that you saw and whatnot, there is a sense of community, of Ubuntu that is there, and it's their role. Most kids, if they finish high school and are out there, and even if they haven't, but they have a job, are expected to then give that money to the family. And that is problematic at times because the kids want to go to school and everything, but the expectation, they grow up knowing that they are part of a family and need to give back. So it's a little more inherent in their culture. Good question.
Right. Thank you.
Hi. What's your reaction, your feelings about sort of the voices of American politics that might say, take care of America first. Let's not be concerned with other countries.
What do you think my feelings are?
What are your reactions? How do you feel that should be responded to?
I think it's very sad. Very, very sad. America isn't what most of those people say it is it? I grew up in sort of a Leave It to Beaver family outside of Chicago, you know, sort of middle class and, you know, little mom and dad. But it isn't the reality of our life today. Look at this campus. Look at the diversity on this campus and how our families are unique, many uniquenesses in families. What is the American dream? What is this family? Are we going to return to throwing tea in the harbor against our own country? I mean, we are polarized. I feel we're very polarized right now. And I feel that the youth today are getting so much in the media of, you know, this soundbite and this soundbite and you know, this rigidness. Whereas Nelson Mandela was Amy's hero and mine, many ways. They got where they got today because they negotiated. As Mandela said, I've said this before, you might have heard me, he will say, get to know your enemy, work with your enemy, and your enemy can become your partner. And that's why South Africa was not totally destroyed. So I think if you find good examples like that, where it can work, I think when Easy and Tobacco were involved in Amy's murder, it was because they believed that Mandela was a sellout, and their political leadership did not believe in negotiation. They thought it was the wrong thing and didn't get them very far. But Mandela got the country, along with many others, brought them to the point where there is hope for the future. And I hope we have that hope too.
Can I sneak in a totally unrelated question, but one that I think people here might want to hear?
Sure.
Anything you want to say about your own Whittier College experience and what it may or may not have meant to you or fostered in you?
I am a firm believer in liberal arts. I had an interesting experience because I was a married student here and there weren't too many. And my husband was here longer than I was. And he brought me here. We were engaged, as I mentioned. This word engagement has been running around my head for the last week. He did a lot of theater when they didn't have this beautiful auditorium then, but he did Fantastics, he did Bye Bye Birdie, he did Macbeth, and probably should have attended class a little bit more, because when I got here, it's like, ooh, I have to take this and that to make sure I graduate. And I had transferred, and I thought, I hope I can graduate. I had no problem. He did, doing all the theater. But he was in a play, Bye Bye Birdie, and my in-laws invited me to come out here and see it, my first time in California, and I went to the cast party, and afterwards I got an engagement ring here. And then when I came back the next September, we loaded up a little Chevrolet Corvair and drove out here on our sort of honeymoon, was driving out here, got a little apartment down at Washington. It's still there. I saw it the other day, La Ronda, and came to campus. No one liked me because the girls were mad because, you know, they couldn't date Peter. And the guys were mad because Peter didn't hang around with them so much. I believe he was a Saxon. I never got into society. But anyway, and he played football, and he hurt himself and all this, and the football play. But, you know, I kind of interrupted a social thing. But I love the classes here. I had great professors. I liked being able to participate. They were supportive of me as an individual. And you don't get that in a lot of big schools. And, you know, things like Richard Nixon dedicated the library that weekend of graduation in 1965. Bob Hope, and you probably don't know Margaret Chase Smith, a senator from Maine. These people came to this campus, and it was vibrant. And, you know, the vibrancy I see today is, it's still alive here. You know, and the kids have been great, say hi to me, walking around campus, and it's 46 years, like, when did I graduate? In 1965? You know, it was my high school 50th reunion, so figure that out. And that seems a very long time, but I still feel it hasn't changed that much. It's lots of new things, lots of new gadgets, and that's, you know, I can walk around with my BlackBerry or my iPad too, but, you know, all that happens. But it's been great, and I loved the background. Actually, a lot of what I've studied here has stayed with me and helped me in dealing with some of the issues I'm doing today. That's what education is about. It's really about life.